Have you ever noticed how quickly we jump to the worst case scenario? We call minor setbacks disasters, a rough day becomes the worst ever, and a cold snap is pure misery. We will discuss shaping our definition of catastrophe because these thoughts affect anxiety. But first, let's begin by settling in. Whether you're sitting or lying down, allow your body to relax into the space beneath you. Let your hands rest gently, your shoulders soften, and your jaw release. Take in a slow, steady breath, and then exhale, letting go of whatever you've carried into this moment. Just breathe, fully present with the experience of each breath as it moves in, and each breath as it moves out. Now gently bring your attention to your body. Notice where you feel grounded, where you're connected to the surface beneath you. This groundedness is always available, no matter what's going on around you. As you continue to breathe, notice any thoughts that arise. Some might be worries or negative predictions. That's okay. You don't need to engage with them right now. Just observe them. Just let them drift away. They're not facts. They're not prophecies. They're just thoughts. With your next breath, silently remind yourself, I can pause before I believe everything I think. Let this mindfulness practice set the tone as we explore how our words and thoughts shape anxiety and how we can begin to see things more clearly. What happens to anxiety when we constantly use catastrophic language, when we frame everyday inconveniences as if the sky is falling? That's what I want to explore with you today, how catastrophic thinking, especially the way we talk about experiences, can fuel anxiety and make everyday stress feel overwhelming. Let me start with a moment I'll never forget. One winter day, I heard the weather forecaster say, "This storm is bringing more misery to the St. Louis area." Misery? Yes, it was icy. Some car doors were frozen shut. But unless someone was stranded in a remote area without help, without a cell phone, I wouldn't call it misery. For most people, it was a hassle, a problem, sure, but not a catastrophe. And yet, think about how that word lands, misery. It shapes how we feel. If I walk into a room and say, "Oh, it's so miserable and dreary out," people slump, shoulders drop, maybe a sigh or two. But if I say, "I love how peaceful the rain sounds," their mood often shifts. Could be same rain, different words, completely different emotional experience. This kind of exaggerated language is everywhere, especially in the media. Headlines shout that a year was the worst ever, or a decade was hellish. But let's pause and ask, is that true? Was every moment of that year or decade unbearable for everyone? Sure, the pandemic of 2020 brought real hardship. For some, it was devastating. But for many, it was about adapting to change, not a personal catastrophe. Most of us still had shelter, food, and access to support. For those of us who didn't lose loved ones, it was hard, but survivable. When we absorb language that constantly frames life as unbearable, we start to feel that way too. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. A self-fulfilling prophecy happens when a belief influences our behavior in a way that makes the belief come true. For example, if you walk into a room thinking, "No one wants to talk to me," you're less likely to smile, to make eye contact, or to join a conversation. And people are less likely to approach you. You leave thinking, "See, no one talked to me." But really, your belief shaped your behavior, which shaped your experience. I once worked with a woman who had severe social phobia. She avoided people almost completely. But over time, as her beliefs changed, so did her experience. One day she told me with excitement, "Someone asked me for directions." To her, that moment meant the world, because it signaled she was becoming approachable, and it led to friendships, confidence, and even a promotion. Here's the shift I want to suggest. Most problems in life are inconveniences, not catastrophes. I remember walking out after a long day of therapy sessions and discovering I had a flat tire. I reminded myself, this is just an inconvenience. I called for help, made alternative plans, and handled it. But then I got a call about someone who was suicidal. That required my full emotional energy. And because I hadn't already spent it on catastrophizing over the tire, I was able to be fully present. Reframing the flat tire helped me conserve emotional energy for something that truly mattered. Let's be clear, true catastrophes exist, but we need to be cautious about how often we use that label. So, what can you do when catastrophic thoughts spiral into persistent worry? Worry is the mind's attempt to gain control over uncertainty. It often exaggerates what might go wrong, pulling you away from the present moment and into worst-case scenarios. That's why learning to cope with worry is essential if you want to reduce anxiety. There are two main ways to do that: calming the body and changing your thinking. When you practice relaxation, whether it's deep breathing, progressive muscle relaxation, or mindfulness, you send a signal to the brain that says, "I'm okay right now." And that relaxed physical state makes it harder for worry to gain traction. The mind often takes cues from the body. So when you are physically calm, your thoughts tend to follow. Mindfulness also helps to stay grounded in the present rather than ruminating about the future. When you're mindful, you're observing your experience without judgment, whether it's a passing thought or a difficult emotion. But beyond relaxation, you also need to work with your thoughts more directly. One useful technique for managing worry I call the worry box. The worry box helps you examine your worries, sort through them, and then mentally or even physically put them away. Here's how it works. Start by identifying a worry and ask yourself, is this important? Will it affect my life in a meaningful way? Is it likely to happen? If the answer is no, remind yourself that it doesn't deserve more of your time or energy. Let it go. Sometimes just labeling a worry as unimportant is enough to break its grip. But if the worry is important, Your next question is it controllable? If it is, write down the steps you can take to address it. Create a plan and remind yourself, I'm doing what I can. I'll focus on the step in front of me. Having a plan reduces the feeling of helplessness that often fuels worry. Now, the hardest category, worries that are important but not controllable. In these cases, we turn to our philosophy of life, how we choose to interpret and respond to hardship. Sometimes that means remembering a time when a difficult experience ultimately led to something meaningful. Sometimes it means finding comfort in spiritual beliefs, or simply trusting that we have the capacity to face life as it comes. One of my favorite coping statements for these moments is, I don't know how this will turn out, but I trust I'll be able to handle it. By believing that, I don't have to keep asking what if over and over again. And that's really the goal, not to eliminate worry completely, but to stop letting it dominate your life. Because when you see that not everything is a catastrophe, you stop needing to control every outcome. You develop confidence in your ability to cope, and that's what reduces anxiety. So here's the takeaway. Your thoughts and words matter. If you constantly feed your brain with messages of doom, your anxiety will grow. But if you challenge those messages, if you learn to say, this is hard, but I can handle it, you build resilience. Chances are it's not the worst day ever. So this week, ask yourself, do I want the media or the worst case scenario in my head to control how I feel? Or do I want to be a critical thinker, one who decides how to label and respond to life? And your task is to listen to the Worry Box audio so that you can learn to sort through your catastrophic worries. I've also included a companion audio with this podcast to help with changing thought patterns. It's called Calming Catastrophic Thinking. By listening to it repeatedly, it can help you change these types of thoughts. And be sure to continue rewarding yourself with each step you take and keep practicing the relaxation and mindfulness methods. So now let's take a moment to return to that mindful awareness. Again, connect with your breath. Let it anchor you here. In this moment, there is no need to rush or solve anything. Just breathe. Bring to mind something small that frustrated you recently, something you may have labeled as a disaster or a mess. Now ask yourself, was it truly a catastrophe, or could it be viewed differently? As you reflect, gently shift your perspective. Imagine placing that experience in a new frame, a frame labeled manageable, temporary, or even just an inconvenience. Notice how this new framing feels in your body. Is there more ease? Less tension? You have the ability to choose how you respond, to recognize that while pain and difficulty are part of life, not everything needs to be magnified. So as you move forward today, carry this thought with you. When I name things more clearly, I free myself from unnecessary suffering. Take one more slow breath, and when you're ready, gently return to your surroundings, grounded, aware, and just a bit more at peace. So the next time you face a setback, missed appointment, bad weather, frustrating traffic, pause. Ask yourself, is this a catastrophe or an inconvenience? Then choose your words accordingly. You might just find your anxiety responds in kind. And remember, how we talk about life shapes how we live it. Until next time, keep practicing, keep breathing, and keep moving forward.